Welcome to the very first episode of the Unity Through Cinema podcast. Each episode I will be joined with a different wonderful guest of the movie community. Today, as my first episode, I am joined by the awesome Kolby Mac. Thank you so much for being a part of this podcast.
Yo, what up? And good morning. It's your boy Kolby Mac, and I am finally collabing with the great Ashley.
Oh, you're such a sweetie. Yeah, well, this was planned some weeks ago, but life happens. Couldn't necessarily stick to the plan. But we're here now, and I finally get the chance to work with you, which seems, based on what I can see through Twitter, is like the highlight of a podcaster's life, getting to work with you. Because as soon as I mentioned, they're like, oh my god, it's Kolby. Like, people are getting really excited for this shit.
I'm kind of a big deal.
Oh, I'm noticing. I am noticing.
No,
you missed the popular.
I'm along for the ride. I think, like, I love the community that I've had the privilege of being a part of. And, if I can be the injection of just, like, energy and creating a vibe and celebrating movies, I want to be a part of that. So, hey, I'm good. This is gonna be good. Rip.
I love that. Well, I think I've picked the perfect person to start this series off with. So, one thing that I love about Kolby is I message him on Facebook. I'm like, look, I'm planning on starting a new podcast series. Would you be interested? He didn't even ask, what's the series about? What does it entail? He's just like, nah, I'm there. I'm good. We're cool.
Yeah, I mean, I folks will know. I say yes really quickly. There's not very many like guest spots that I've said no to. Like, and folks that have reached out to me to to collab on stuff where I've never heard of their content. And sometimes I used to feel guilty about it. Like, shit, man, there's like so many people out there, and like I want to listen to everybody's pod, and there's just not enough hours in a day. And I'm already like a pod addict. I listen to 10 to 12 hours of podcasts every day, 62 different podcasts every week, and I do try to sprinkle in a bunch of new stuff. And number one, if you're not the biggest fan of your own content, you're doing it wrong. So yeah, I listen to my pod. I listen to every guest pod that I'm on, like, because ultimately, like, that's the way how I can get better, right? I want to be able to kind of like critique myself, like, yo, Kolby, you should have like dialed it back here. This isn't your show, this is their show. Like, kind of share up the time and stuff like that. But ultimately, I'm gonna do me and have fun doing it.
And that's what you gotta do. And not to mention, I think it's really important, especially if you are a guest on somebody else's, whether it be a podcast or like a YouTube video or whatever, but I think it's really important to actually watch, like, promote, share that, not just because you're in it, but because someone was nice enough to kind of invite you into their world. You should return the favor and be like, hey, at least I can try and give you a couple extra views and stuff. Get other people interested. Like, that's the smallest part that you can do, but I find that there are a lot of people who don't really do that.
Yeah, and it's definitely unfortunate. I'm a sharer at heart, so like I've always
Sharing
been
is
one
caring.
where it is, and like if there's knowledge that I have, and like it doesn't do anything to me to keep that from someone. Like, all it can do is for me to share it and like let that benefit someone else. Any contacts that I have, any friends, like, hey, thanks so much for allowing me to guest on your show. There's a person who I think would be like just great flavor to kind of add into your rotation or something like that. That's great. And I think if I can be the change that I want to see, it starts with me.
I love that.
Put that shit on a shirt.
I was totally thinking that. Oh god, I'll just add that to my repertoire of all my other merch. Anytime someone says something that makes me laugh, I'm like, I'm putting it on a t-shirt. And I pretty much actually do. So a little explanation of what this podcast series is. I actually kind of came up with the concept sometime last year after being on having a guest appearance on Jared Buckendall's podcast of movies and nonsense, and it's very that there's a little bit of talking about movies, and then there's just like talking about random shit, and it's what I love. And it's what I love when I record my game show episodes, where it's once we're done with the actual stuff, it's those in-between moments where you're kind of getting to know each other and you're just shooting the breeze, and then afterwards you like end up talking about movies or politics. You never really know what you're going to end up discussing, but it's really that's like the highlight for me. I like just love getting that chance to just talk to people. And on top of that, so I want to do a blend of talking about movies, but also talking about some in-depth personal stuff, whether it be about movies, how we feel about movies, or our own personal life experiences, especially in the movie community. One thing I've always strived to do on my game show is be very inclusive, showcase the diversity in the movie community, because as a woman sitting on the sidelines and you're watching a lot of these guys do these YouTube videos and you're like, do you have anybody on who isn't a straight white dude? Not really.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, well, you know what? I'm not going to wait for you to come call me. I'm going to do my own thing, and I'll be the one to do that. I'm the person who thinks lead by example.
Yeah.
I don't wait for other people. Had one person try, when I called someone out on this, they tried to accuse me of being jealous. And I was like, for what? I got a game show. I work with plenty of other people. What have I got to be jealous of? I'm just pointing out a fact here.
Yeah.
Like, you know, bros got to stand up for their bros, so whatever.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I haven't even dipped my toe in the YouTube sphere. I'm a little apprehensive about it, only because
this is your introduction. Welcome to YouTube.
I know, like, this is crazy. Like, and it's weird. People like always ask me, like, for years, yo, Kolby, why don't you have a YouTube channel? And like, I'm so technically uninclined that it just like scares me off. And I'm pretty sure like it's not as hard as I'm making it out to be. But also like, I'm a big procrastinator. Like, I've got no problem calling myself out. I'm a big procrastinator. I'm easily distracted, and like, I need an accountability partner to like push me. And but I'm also not benign to like knowing that the shit that I hear about the YouTube space, it's as toxic as a lot of other social media platforms. And sometimes folks are so disillusioned, they cannot see the forest from the trees. They can't see that they are promoting this atmosphere of like this little bubble, right? This little isolated world that only exists with people that look and think like them. Those type of echo chambers are not healthy spaces, and that's not me. Like, I want to challenge myself to be in as many different spaces, because I have nothing to gain but growth from that. It's been great discovering podcasts that necessarily didn't have me as an audience member in mind, but I'm able to like take something from that and just find like these really interesting stories. Like, it's really, really like been fun. So I know that once I kind of shift a little bit more into YouTube, I'm hoping to kind of find a lot of that, but I got no problem calling out, suckers who are building a false sense of truth.
Tell it. Yeah. It's I'm not gonna say that there are certain people it's just like, oh, you're sexist, you're racist. It's like, no, I don't think that you are these things. I do think that you're just a little ignorant. You're in a box and you're just accustomed to being around a certain thing and you don't know how to push past that. The problem is listening to these same people who are like, oh my god, can you believe the Oscars were not more inclusive? Can you believe Hollywood is not doing this? I'm like, but you're doing the same thing. You can't expect them to do it, but the rules do not apply to you. You gotta sometimes, it's the whole adage of people in glass houses. It's like, seriously, just step back, kind of look around yourself and go, maybe I'm contributing to that kind of culture.
Yeah.
And what can I do to stop it? And so that leads me into talking about, I feel like I would be appearing to be under a freaking rock if I did not address everything that is going on right now, not just in the US, but worldwide.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter is going on, which it's not like it just began. It's been going for a while, but as of late, after the death of George Floyd, I'm not going to say death, murder of George Floyd, because that's what it was, it's really picked up momentum and spread globally. And voices around the world are speaking out, which is important. And yet, the movie community, I feel like, is still not getting it right. I mean, a lot of people ain't getting it right. That's a silly statement. They are still stupid. But when you see things going on where it's like, cool, well, we want X, Y, Z. It's like, well, we're going to give you A, B, C. It's like, well, that wasn't what we wanted.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of that going on, and then I see a lot of same with podcasters, YouTubers who are maybe now noticing that they're not inclusive, and then going, okay, I'll show that I'm inclusive to get people off my back, but they're not going to stick with it. It's I do it once, I look like the good person, and then they go back to their old ways. Some of them are genuine. I can see there's a genuineness there. It's like, oh shit, I'm gonna fix it. Yeah. But I've noticed some people where I'm like, I can see you're full of shit.
Yeah,
you are so fucking full of shit. I'm not gonna name names because that's not my thing. But I did notice certain people who are just like, look at me, I'm podcasting with these people of color. I'm like, why did you have to put emphasis on the fact that they're people of color? Because you don't do that with the white folk, but you actively are announcing that they're black.
Yeah.
Because we don't have eyes.
It's very performative. It's funny because I just did a podcast, with a black label underneath the Feel and Film podcast, and it was myself and 3 other critics of color, and we took some time off. We usually do like a monthly drop of this kind of bonus pod, and this is a little bit longer only because, one, as being 4 critics of color, the civil unrest and the social injustice and just being constantly inundated with this reminder of how much things haven't changed, it's hard, and the burden shouldn't fall on us, but it does. And we just very naturally took like a 2-week break just from individual projects to just kind of kind of really for our mental health, really try to kind of reconcile our feelings, right? Because it's very easy, especially for me as a black man. I'll speak for myself, living in North Georgia, even in Atlanta, a very metropolitan city. It's a very red state. I could just be angry and just want to I just want to lash out. But I also have a responsibility not only to myself, but to my family to think really smartly. And what I needed to do was give myself some time, give myself some grace, and then also, what can I do? Should I go out and protest? I don't know if that's necessarily my lane. So my lane is my voice. That's where my talent is. So I'm going to use the little platform that I do have to promote everything black. Black Lives Matter, black voices, black artists, and really condemn those that are being opportunists, being performative. Because right now, Black Lives Matter and anything black is very in vogue. I don't want this to get bad. This is like my life. I can't turn my blackness off. And I think you as an entity or as a corporation, as a podcast, even critics, I don't want you to be able to turn off your love for all things black. That is a privilege that I don't have, right? And I've got no problem educating folks. I will say it's been great, but it's a little unique, right? And it was great getting a different aspect from one of my sisters last night, that I love how much my white allies, my white brothers and sisters have reached out and expressed care to me. Like, yo, Kolby, I hope everything's okay. I cannot understand really what you're going through, but I just want you to know that I'm a friend, and if you ever need to talk, we could talk. Folks who generally didn't even know what to say said, yo, I want to say something, but I have no idea what to say. The fact that they reached out to me first and didn't say, if I could tell anybody, yo, if this is not your fight, but you feel called to say something, and I would say for the most part, people should say something because silence does more harm than good. Talk to a black friend. Talk to a couple of them. And then if you only have one black friend, know that that's a problem. Try to make more, okay? I implore people to have dialogue and to do it from a space of compassion, empathy, and respect. If you have those 3 things, that's the great basis for making the change that we truly want, Because for a lot of folks, ignorant necessarily isn't a bad word. It's just you did not know. And I'm not going to fault you for not knowing to a certain extent. But at the same time, my homegirl let me know, it's like, Kolby, that's all well and good, but sometimes folks just got to give us space. imagine with everything going on, this barrage of DMs, like, how you doing?
Yeah.
You okay? You okay? Leave us. Yo, leave. Sometimes you just kind of like, hey, step back, and she put it into much better words, but it's also like it's different. Like I'm a bit more inviting and a lot more forgiving and a lot more tolerant. You know what I'm saying?
I noticed.
I very much am. So like, but to each their own. This past month has been eye-opening. Like, the world is waking up. Not necessarily like they ignored the atrocities that Black and brown people and other marginalized groups in the U.S. have claimed. Like, it's not like that didn't exist, but it's so much easier to not do anything because you don't want to change. You don't want to be uncomfortable. Nobody wants to be uncomfortable. But in order to get the change that we want in this world, like I said before, it has to start with us. There's never been change, and this is the thing, there's never been change on a grand scale that does not include white people. There was not the Emancipation Proclamation, the abolishment of slavery, without the efforts of good white people. There was not the Civil Rights Act passing without good white people there to back it. And in this same instance, the call to action is that we need good white people to say, yo, one, I'll tell everybody, I do not blame you or your whiteness for what I and my community are going through. Yep. But at the same time, you must acknowledge that you do benefit from your privilege and your power, and I need you to be able to give a power, because I think a lot of people confuse, like, we all want equality. No. I don't want equality. I want equity.
Okay.
So let's think about this difference, right? We're both hungry. There's one slice of bread. Equality says you cut the bread in half, each person gets a piece. On its face, that's not bad, right, Ash?
Right.
But Ashley, you just had a really big breakfast a couple of hours ago. I haven't eaten in 3 days. What does equality get us when there's still only one piece of bread left?
That's a really good point.
Equity says, I acknowledge that I've just eaten and I've been eating good for a while. You haven't. I'm going to give you a little bit more. That's equity.
Okay.
Right? That's what we need. We need that inside of, let's keep this industry focused. Think about the films that we see. Equality would say, like, oh, let's make sure that there's equal opportunity, for people, from all different, ethnic groups and, other backgrounds, to be able to have access. Obviously, we know in the decades in Hollywood that hasn't been the case in regards to opportunity. There's been these systemic, systems in place to oppress certain peoples and groups. Equity now says, yo, I need you to understand and give up some of that power, so that way this doesn't happen again, right? Because we're at a disadvantage, and it's going to take time. Like, this is not something that's going to change overnight, but I think it's great that the world is awake to this change. It's unfortunate that the murder of George Floyd had to be the catalyst to this, reinvigorated movement, because you said it, Black Lives Matter ain't new. It's been around for years, and it's a fight, and it's going to be a long fight, but it's a fight that is absolutely worth fighting for, and I'm not going to relent. I will not take my foot off the gas, and I hope those around me won't either.
I think there's a lot of what you said. It's people kind of look around and they're like, oh, this is a first that some of these things are happening. It's not, and it just kind of shows certain people are not aware of their history, maybe because it doesn't directly affect them.
Yeah, it's not accurately taught either.
That is true. Like, I think when you were talking about people being opportunistic and taking into the fact that Black Lives Matter is in vogue, I'm literally thinking back to the late 70s, early 80s of we'll just say in the 80s. So I'm thinking about New York ball scene, which was predominantly Black, Latino. Those were the main people, and these were the gay trans community. They started this culture, and this was their safe haven.
Yeah.
And then one day, along came Madonna. Madonna, who you can't get more white than that. So white, she adopted African babies. So, So she comes along and she starts her, I believe it was her Blonde Ambition tour. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. And she releases her hit song, Vogue, which was inspired by voguing, by the ball scene, you know, inspired by Pepe Le Beige, all those amazing people of the ball scene who cultivated this, and they're like, this is ours. But then of course a lot of people see this, and first the ball scene is like, wow, we're seen, we're noticed, this is amazing, we're not invisible. But then it's a fad, and it died out.
Yeah.
And suddenly, all the people of the ball scene weren't popular anymore, they weren't trending, and they went back to being hated by white people. Because it's like, well, you're not trending at number one, so we don't really care anymore. And on top of that, and there is a documentary for it, and the name of the documentary is evading my mind. But it centered around the guys who were the backup dancers during the Blonde Ambition tour for Madonna. And they were talking about how negatively impacted their careers were because of this tour. Where, you know, one minute they're celebrated for being gay black men or just gay men in general and being this and being up front and center. But after that, a lot of them couldn't get work. It was like, it wasn't important anymore. And her going like, you know, because I'm so big in the gay scene, she didn't really stand up for the gay people after that. It's like, she got her coin, she was good, she moved on to the next album and the next thing. But the people who she took that from and got famous off something that was not hers had to deal with the repercussions, not her.
Yeah.
And it's the same situation right now. It's like, cool, yeah, this is amazing and we like you now. It's like, but what happens when Black Lives Matter loses its kind of, you know, notoriety?
Mm-hmm.
And then people just go back to not giving a shit.
How things were, yeah. I mean, that's the textbook definition of cultural appropriation, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't think that Madonna and her camp did it from a malicious space. Like, they didn't do that maliciously to say, we are going to co-opt what you have and we're going to take it for ourselves. But oftentimes, white people can't see that's essentially what they're doing, right? You know, you didn't have an invitation into our space. You've taken it for your own, and you use these very performative words like, you know, I stand for inclusivity, I stand for people that are different and stuff like that because I'm quote unquote different. Well, if you're different, that doesn't just change because your mood changes now or it's time to move on to a new album, right? You appropriated this culture from this community, and it's crazy because I just got finished watching these last 2 seasons of Pose.
Yes, finally.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, and I like that is not a show that was necessarily marketed for me, but I fucking love Ryan Murphy. Like, that's my guy, right? Yeah. And I've like heard about Pose, and I've seen how much it's been celebrated, and I haven't got a chance to talk about it, so I'll take a few minutes on it. I feel like it's a really
go for it. I live
world.
For it.
It's a really interesting world, and you know, I think it's fascinating how Ryan Murphy challenged himself and also FX to embrace a show that doesn't necessarily have conventional actors working. I mean, we have real trans actors and
not just on screen, off screen as well, directing, writing, producing, music, everything. The trans people are fully involved in this thing.
Yes.
And I absolutely love that because it's different to, you know, it would have been a lot of people, like anything from any number of shows I can think of where they hired someone who is cisgendered to come along and play someone who's trans. No, this is going, no, let's get actual trans people who this is their life. This is their story. Let them tell it.
Because that lens is what's going to bring that level of authenticity to what is being displayed on screen. And I found that really refreshing to have, right? I mean, India Moore, there's something that's very, very captivating about her. And I love the fact that I've matured even to the point where I'm pretty sure 25 years ago, like I stubbornly, right, and very like, just very like, you know, and misunderstandingly would not have acknowledged, you know, her gender. But I have no problem with just her. Like, that's what she wants to be called. Like that, yo, she's a she. She's a gorgeous woman. Like, She's a
Hell
really
yeah.
beautiful woman. She really, really is. And
They all are. I find them
they
absolutely
really
stunning.
are. And I'll say this, as a critic and as an actor, was I in love with every performance? No. There's some, but I give some grace because I don't think like they were not going in to say like this is gonna be like, yo, this is gonna be this Emmy nominated like hit, like we're gonna show the caliber of acting. But at the same time, like these are actors, these are storytellers, and
Yeah.
the beautiful thing that I like about this show, and I was expressing this on my podcast last night, they are not just black, they are not just trans, they are not just gay. That is their identity. That's a part of their identity. That's not their only identity. Like in the same way that I am a black performer, I'm a black film
You
critic.
are?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's not all that I am. It's interesting that when Madonna and that tour and that entire fad of like taking this, it made it seem like that's all that community was good for.
Yeah.
But like completely missing the point that these people can offer so much more than just their ballroom scene, right? But you won't know that if you don't give them that opportunity and space to explore that. Imagine the ways that they can contribute with their own lens to other aspects of daily life.
Yeah.
But you really don't know because all you thought is that, oh, right now, you know, voguing and the ballroom scene, like that's in it. But that's all I need you for. You know, like that's really unfortunate to be like pigeonholed, to think that like, oh, just because this is a part of my identity, that's all you value me for. Imagine if we did that like for regular people, like with our spouses, you know, or our partners, just like that. Like that's really unfortunate. There's so much more that makes up us aside from the little things that people see. And if we took the time to really invest into people, we can see that there's so much more to be offered. That's what true diversity is, because it'll bring out things that we never really knew existed that we needed.
Yeah, that's one of the things that stays on my mind when I see a lot of people discussing, not for the first time, but discussing, you know, casting black actors or Latino actors or Asian or whatever for the role that is that, instead of hiring a white person for it, which I totally understand.
Yeah.
I feel like the lines are blurred between when it comes to animation, because you can just so easily as hire a person of ethnicity to do the voice of a white person.
I think there's a lot of nuance there. I was talking about that too, like with the I forget the actor's name who voiced Cleveland from the Cleveland Show and Family Guy. One, I didn't know that he was a white guy, and it didn't matter to me, right? But I also understand the voice acting world. There's a lot of gatekeeping there. Hank Azaria is a really, you know, famous voice actor and just, you know, regular actor, period. And you know him from The Simpsons, and he's really talented. He's the voice of Apu and has been for over 20 years. And it never rang wrong to me. But like when you think about it, like, yo, it's wrong. It's not just wrong in the fact that he is using a lot of negative stereotypes in his characterization of Apu, right? But also at the same time, he has taken away an opportunity for someone of that marginalized group to be able to like have that. And Hank Azaria did not set out and say, this is what I'm going to do. Like, no. It's not from a malicious space. It's just he is benefiting from that system that's been in place. And the fact that he said back in February, yo, I'm going to step down and I do not feel comfortable doing this anymore. He has been he's been awoken to that.
It's a double-edged sword, because I remember after I saw season 1 of Pose, I was watching certain interviews with the cast members, and when they were talking about how do you feel about, you know, this giving, you know, visibility to trans actors, and I believe it was India Moore, and she was saying, I'm not a trans actor. She said, trans is who I am. I'm not acting at being trans. I am an actress.
Yes.
That's my job. And while I think it's so important that you're actually recognizing trans people and putting them in these roles, please don't just put us in these roles. Please know that we want to play other roles too. I want to play, you know, the angry divorced wife or something like that. And she's like, I want to play the serial killer in a movie or something. She's like, we are more than just this. And she's like, thank you for giving us this step, but realize there's more to go. And that applies to everybody. Don't just be like, cool, well, yes, we want to start hiring more ethnicities to play ethnic roles, but now realize that there are roles that are not defined by gender, not defined by race, or sexuality or anything like that. So open it to the floor to anybody who delivered the line the best in the auditions.
Yeah.
Ignore that shit and be like, you know, I know that there have been some, I feel like it happens more with independent projects where someone's like, you know what, this wasn't even the role for a woman, but she came in, did these lines, and we're like, okay, we're rewriting the script and we're making it a woman because you did it that freaking well.
Yeah.
That kind of shit is what's amazing, and I love stories like that, and that's like a positive aspect. It's a little aspect. It's not a predominant part of the industry. I wish it was.
Yeah.
But it's not. But to try and move on to something a little more positive, I want to ask you that in the midst of all the anger and tension and turmoil that everybody is going through, mostly minorities, white people are angry, but they don't really need to be. I'm just gonna put that out there. A lot of white people be angry, and I'm like, why are you mad? Why? Like, it's like, well, our rights, your rights? No.
Your rights are secure.
I'm like, no, sit this one out, sweetie. Sit this one out. But my question is, what are some positive things that you have noticed or experienced as a result of recent events? Because I do believe that there are positive things happening.
I think so. Yeah.
And I think it's important to speak on them so that kind of people feel like there's a reason to keep going. Because if you feel like you're just being bombarded with negativity, you're just going to lose all hope.
Yeah. I mean, we're human. Like, we have to find, like, I've had to find a balance for myself of when to tune in and when to tune out. I had to find, just very organically, Kolby, when are you ready to kind of jump back in to potting it up with folks? Because for 2 weeks, I was just in this place where it was really hard, and things that I'm dealing with personally, you know, in the midst of a global pandemic on top of that, like, you know, then now there's this civil unrest and social injustice that is palpable. But like, I do have hope that this time is a bit different. The world has acknowledged this, that there is a plague in America, and right now the fight is Black Lives Matter. Yeah, absolutely. Right now the fight is Black Lives Matter, but I am not, benign to the fact that there are trans lives that need to matter. There are LGBTQ plus and, you know, other marginalized groups that need to matter. Indigenous people, you know, those groups that need to matter. You know, brown, Latino, Latinx lives that need to matter. And just because we're focusing our attention on one movement at a time doesn't mean that invalidates the other movements. Like, people need to understand that, right? And that's why the entire phraseology of all lives matter. Please stop. Please. That's all I'll say. Please stop, right? Goodness. But I'm appreciative of the non-performative allyship that I have seen just in my space, right? In film Twitter. I think for the most part, folks are really being intentional and awake to say, yo, I have never really thought outside of my comfort space. And sometimes I think my actions may have necessarily not been the greatest. I came with it with good intent, but, you know, it may have like done bad. Like, I'll take Aaron White, for example. You know, he runs the Feel and Film podcast. He felt a personal conviction that his purview and worldview was very limited. There was films and other pieces of cinema that he was not digesting. And it was stunting, you know, essentially like how he was able to appreciate film. And the Facebook community that he's cultivated, you know, from his podcast, he has noticed the conversations that I would have and these other folks would have. And I did plant the seed a little bit, you know, in regards to creating the Black Label from that Facebook discussion group. And he wanted to be able to use his platform not to appropriate Blackness, but to say, yo, because he has nothing to do with our podcast on that. It's on his network. He doesn't have a say in what we do or how we do it.
Right.
He has to say, hey, let me give my platform and share it with you, because I think that there's people that can be able to benefit from the conversations. And it's been great. Every time we drop an episode, people are inquisitive, things that they didn't realize, these tropes in Hollywood, you know, all these different systems that have been in place that they just never seen. We're taking the mud out of people's eyes so that they can really see what we see. They don't have to necessarily always agree, but hopefully their heart is softened, their eyes are open, and maybe we can get to a dialogue at some point and operate from that place of compassion, empathy, and respect. And that way we can be able to get the change. And I've seen that in a lot of different folks. It's been great. And there's been folks that have reached out to me and say, yo, I want to do the same thing, Kolby. Like, I want to use my platform to amplify Black and brown voices, right? And we were seeing that a lot. I think it's great because there's a lot of folks that like, yo, 100% of your content is like for white only. And I know for a fact you didn't design it to be that way. It's just, and honestly, it's what you know. Like, that is absolutely fine. But now that we've been woken up, now we're like, oh snap. we're out the sunken place, and like now I'm kind of seeing things a little bit, different now. It's challenging folks. There's folks that like, but also at the same time, the dangerous thing, don't just also reach out to Black people right now, not only because it's cool, and then only think that they're good to talk about Black things.
Oh yeah.
That's the part that is really like, you know what I mean?
When I mentioned earlier about a certain person making a big show and dance of having Black people on their show, they're like, cool, there's gonna be questions and answers, please submit your questions. I was pretty mortified when I saw the questions that people were submitting, and I had to step away had to put the phone down, step away, and I'm just like, I'm gonna go off on someone in a second. I need to go breathe, because there were questions like, so what do you think of Black Panther? And who's your favorite Black superhero? I'm like, really? You only going to be asking them Black questions? Because that's the only thing they're qualified to talk about? I'm like, you know what? Why don't you go back to basics? What was the first film you ever saw at the movies? What's your favorite movie? What's your favorite quote? Basic stuff that does not have to be about their color, but completely tells you about who this person is as an individual. Yeah. Because I feel like that's one of the main things about films. You kind of get an idea about someone based on someone they watch, but don't assume you know them. Don't pigeonhole them. All that dumb shit where it's like, oh, you like this one movie? Well, now I know everything about it. No, you don't.
No.
That's stupid. People are not that, that, whatever the word is that I'm looking for.
Yeah. No, I feel
whatever that word is, they're that. They ain't that.
So it's a slippery slope for some folks to kind of veer to that territory. But like I felt rewarded seeing folks within my community, within my circle, and I do a good job at cultivating, I guess, a lot of good folks. Like, I haven't had to block too many folks. There's some folks that like whoa. Y'all are really showing your ass. Okay.
We know one of them.
Yes,
we know one of them. We ain't gonna say his name, but we know one of them.
We definitely do. But I mean, it's been illuminating to the folks that have like been real, and like I've even said, damn, you know what? Like I had somebody reach out to me and say, Kolby, I just want to apologize because I realized that like the few times you've been in the podcast, I've always reached out to you to kind of comment on Black storytelling. Right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, I'm sorry. And I said, listen, bro, I'd like to be honest with you. Because I know you, I didn't take it personal. Because one, it was a film that you embraced, that you wanted to watch, but because that wasn't your lens or your perspective, you may not have necessarily understood how to interpret it, right? So you reached out to a Black friend to do that. But also at the same time, carve up some space so we can discuss more outside of that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I watched 146 films in the movie theater last year. They weren't all Black, folks. All right, let me tell you that right now. They weren't all Black. I am more than just talking points about the Five Bloods or Medea films or Spike Lee films and stuff like that. And I would say for the most part, folks get that and they see it and they are using their platform for good.
Yeah, I think there's another aspect, and it's not to kind of say like, hold on, before you crucify us white folk for not being inclusive, but there is something that I want to say, and I don't think that I'm not saying it because I'm like, this justifies white people, but I think it kind of speaks to an effect on how things are and how it has impacted minorities in the community, not just people of color, but the LGBT community and women as well, and how accepted they feel in this community of film. Because from the moment I started my game show, I said in every episode, I'm like, if you want to be on, please reach out to me and I will happily have you on. This is a free-for-all and everybody is welcome. And right off the bat, it was dude. Only guys were signing up. And I was kind of like, I thought more women would want to sign up, being that it's hosted by a woman. But still, women weren't wanting to put themselves out there in that position, and I had to start reaching out to them. And then I'm kind of like, again, pretty much the same thing with not just women minorities, but people of color. Now, guaranteed, I did have a couple of men who are Latino, and they're on, and I'm sadly only had one black woman on, and I was disappointed in myself because I felt like I wasn't representing what I stand for. But I'm like, I said, but most of the time I got to reach out to these people and say, I want you on, and it's not about me. I want to showcase you and show that there's more than this in the community, that it is more than what it is. But sadly, I feel like a lot of minorities in this community are so used to being excluded, they don't want to put themselves out there. And that's not their fault. That's the community fault. If you set a standard, people are going to react to it the same way, and they're not going to want to. Fortunately, I think that my game show is kind of start to build enough of an understanding. People are understanding me, they understand what it's about, because as of this year, way more people were signing up, and definitely more minorities were signing up this year than last year. So I feel like people are finally getting what it is and what it's about, and people are kind of warming up to, hey, maybe I can throw myself out there. I've had people who actually don't do YouTube, and they're like, I don't do YouTube, but can I come on? I'm like, hell fucking yeah, you can. I'm like, everybody get in on this shit. I mean, you yourself put your name down to be on my game show, and honestly, you'd probably be on by now if I didn't take that month off and then get hospitalized and all that shit, because some things got pushed back. But anybody who's like, I have a list of I think I've got 15 people on my wait list, and it's a first come first serve. It's not I'm cherry picking, I want this person on. It's like, no, it's in order of who asked first. It's as simple as that, and I just make my way down the list because it's the only way that I can be fair. But ultimately, I'm just like, I just want to celebrate movies with people, because for me, I feel like films are such a bonding experience, and so it really gets on my nerves when people make it get very gatekeeping about it, and I'm just like, it ain't that serious.
It isn't.
It's really not.
I mean, I celebrate movies. I am an apologist for movies. I'm a defender of movies. Like I have labeled myself the most subjectively objective film critic in the game, because at the same time, like, I'm good at compartmentalizing. So like I can watch a film with a critical eye, but also be a spectator and be a fan. A lot of people sometimes have difficulty with that, right? And like finding that balance. But ultimately, in the same way that people enjoy a good book, it's that same experience as what I get from a movie. I'm not a book reader. I ain't read a book since high school. Now, you give me a screenplay, I'll read the fuck out of that. I can't explain it. Just my mind works based off of narrative storytelling. So like I just love it the way that it's digested, and my mind can like actually see what the writer is seeing. So I can watch movies all day. I love watching TV shows all day because I love storytelling. I love seeing people and doing different things and being in different worlds. Like, there's no reason to hate on that. I will never, folks like, oh, what's your most hated film? Like, I don't have hate. I have a lot of films that like I dislike. I don't hate it. Like, I don't want to give my time, attention, and energy to something that I hate. This film didn't like personally offend me. Like, oh my God, you have done something to me. No, a movie can't do shit to you. It's a movie, all right? It can't do anything to you, right? People can't offend you without your permission to be offended. But like, there's definitely movies that like, I'm like, man, I had so much expectations and it didn't meet my expectations. That's really unfortunate. Like, I'm so annoyed because I had everything, I'd rather operate from a place of like, for the most part, let's celebrate movies. We can bag on really trash movies like that John Henry movie on Netflix. It's awful. It's garbage. Okay? Like, it's really, really bad. But like,
I'm going to admit that I'm one of those people. I mean, I even have an entire section of my channel called Kill It With Fire, and it's all meant to be in good fun. I'm like, if there's a movie I hate it. But where I differ from a lot of other people, where they're just like, oh my God, you're such a hater, I'm like, you know what? I watched this film, I hated it, I'm going to talk about it, and then I'm going to move on with my life.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Because
I'm like, well, I didn't like it, so why do I feel the need to keep talking about it? Easy. I don't. So, moving on to the next one.
You don't want to give that power to something that you hate.
Yeah, and then there are the people who are just like, I hate it, so I'm going to talk about it for the next decade. It's like, okay, that's a waste of energy. Like, I love the Twilight films, but I'm like, y'all still bitching about it?
And like,
you know, when
it comes up,
they make money.
When it comes up, it is a trigger for folks. Like, it's a trigger for people. Like, when I say, yo, I really enjoyed Suicide Squad. Oh my God! Ah! Like, oh, yo, chill out, bro. Like,
I loved Suicide Squad. Didn't like the extended edition though.
Yeah, I mean, yo, it's a fun movie. Is it perfect? No. Is it great? No. But like, it didn't offend me. It wasn't like this affront. I thought it did some really, really cool things, and I gave it the grace to be able to do so. Like, I never make up in my mind before watching a movie that I'm gonna like. If you ever go into a movie thing, I already know I'm not gonna like this. You fucked it all up. You've destroyed it. Do not say that. Well, I'll say this. I'll say this. If there are like legitimate reasons, like, okay, if I'm not a fan of a director, not because of his art or he or she's art, but because of like things that they've done personally, like we'll speak for that Guns Akimbo guy.
Okay.
Right.
That's a good current one.
I already know I'm not going to enjoy this movie because one, what he has done personally with his project. He has distorted he's already created this bias that is going to be impossible for me to get rid of, right? This man has used the platform of his actual art to attack people, to attack me, okay? I'm not going to enjoy this film, and I'm a big Daniel Radcliffe fan. I love his choices that he's made after, after he's moved on from Harry Potter. Absolutely love it. Horns and all.
He takes risks.
He does. Like, I really appreciate it, but like, I do not want to watch that film. I just don't. I'm not going to give that director, my time. But if he did not use the actual film Twitter handle to do all that, I probably would have given it a shot. It's like
that's just a fucking stupid move on his part. If you're about to promote a film, don't do that in public.
Yes.
Like, I mean, you shouldn't do it in general.
Yeah, but like.
But if you know that you're that kind of person, you got enough in your mind to know that shit's gonna get you in trouble.
Yeah.
At least hide your identity. You're a stupid criminal.
Yeah.
You're like the one who's like standing in front of the cops with blood dripping off the hammer going, nah, I didn't do it.
Yeah, because he felt justified in his actions off of something that he didn't even understand. Yeah. Something that happened before that, with that young lady, he didn't understand it. He just he just lashed out. So, I mean, yeah, so
then he kept creating new accounts so he could keep doing it like crazy.
Yeah, this guy.
I'm not a off the bat hater or anything like that. Naturally, I can look at a trailer and might go, holy shit, this looks bad. Like the Mummy trailer. I'm sorry. The trailer looked shit, and then the movie was shit. I mean, if you disagree, that's perfectly fine. But those were my feelings, and I watched it, and I was like getting so mad in the movie. I pulled out a pen, I'm making notes, writing all over my arm. I'm like, can't forget this fucking thing just happened. Cool. I'm like, oh wait, I'm like, oh my god, there's so much bad shit happening. I'm running out of space on my arms to take notes on. But I don't want to hate a movie. So I may think, ooh, this looks shit, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna hate it, but I'm gonna go in and watch it because I'm gonna hope maybe it's gonna surprise me. And then sadly I leave and I'm like, oh, that was actually worse. That was like so much worse. That's just how it happens. But I don't, I'm definitely not one of those people who goes around trashing a film and then you're like, have you seen it? And they're like, no, I haven't seen it. It's like, okay. Like, for example, since we're already on controversial topics, I'm going to talk about the person I saw the other day going off on Tropic Thunder because of Robert Downey Jr.'s character. Before you, I can see you breathing. I can see it happening. So just let me say, like, this person was going off, and their exact words were, they should have hired a black man to play this role. They were a black man themselves. But then, of course, even black people telling him, like, have you seen this film? Because I have, and it's fucking funny. He's like, no, it's not funny, it's offensive, and no, I haven't seen this film. They're like, well, if you did,
it's not funny, it's offensive. I haven't seen this film.
Well, if you'd seen it, you'd know you can't hire a black man to play the role because the character is white. And the whole thing was a commentary on blackface
It's
and
satire.
how whitewashing is offensive. Hence the reason why there is a closeted black gay man who is there the whole time criticizing him, saying, stop fucking doing this. Like the point, like, I love that scene where Robert Downey Jr. has that and he's like, what do you mean, you people? And the guy looks, he's like, what do you mean, you people? Like that's perfect, and that's so indicative of the entire thing.
What I called it, because we talked about this last night as well, permission.
Yeah.
One, being a working actor myself, I have been in spaces where I've had a white writer who is introducing topics of race and ethnicity, who just asked me, yo, Kolby, what do you think of this? That's permission. He was asking permission. He was asking me to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Do not think that RDJ just made this decision himself, not only to be cast in this character, right? But like he was a part of the process to a certain degree, and like a part of this like storytelling, right? If he didn't sign off on this, and granted, yes, like somebody else could have played the role, but like there are black people in the film and like, and behind the camera, not necessarily like, like big producers, stuff like that, but like they were not going to make that decision on their own because like they don't, like, nobody wants to be labeled racist. And I do not believe that one, is that blackface? Not necessarily.
It is, but it isn't.
Correct. It is not
doing blackface to talk about blackface.
Correct. And should you have to be able to do that? No, but like it is not blackface.
How else do you
blackface is essentially implementing, putting on the characteristics of negative stereotypes of a marginalized group. In this instance, black people, right? You can say that Robert Downey Jr., the actor, I forget his character's name, the actor, and then the actor doing a character.
Something Lazarus.
Something Lazarus, right? So there's Lazarus. Yeah. And then it's the character that Lazarus is creating, that's that black character, right? So that's why he says, I'm the dude that's playing the dude. Like, that's exactly what that is, right? And that conundrum that why do white people feel so comfortable imposing themselves doing this character, and they're not doing it with in mind, like, hey, let me reach out to a black person and like see like what's true to this, right? No. I'm doing this based off of what Hollywood has taught me that black people talk and act like. And it's typically, a lot of it is about in these negative stereotypes. It's the same thing like we had with Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, right? I felt increasingly uncomfortable, especially, like when Jack Black was essentially, embodying Fridge, right? Because he was not embodying the character in the movie. What he was doing was a negative stereotype of what he thinks that black people act and talk like. And honestly, Kevin Hart did the same thing. He wasn't embodying the character that Danny Glover is playing. He was doing a caricature of negative stereotypes of what old black men sound and talk like.
Right.
Those things are problematic. Not necessarily racist. Racially insensitive.
I saw an interview with Jamie Foxx, and he was being asked about that, and his stance was, when it comes to comedians and that area of entertainment, you got to give them a little bit more room to do things and push things, because a lot of the time it's not to be offensive, it's to tell a story or create a commentary, and sometimes you got to go that route. And he says that's just what it calls for, and he says, I don't take personal offense to it. And then the guy asked him, how do you feel about Robert Downey Jr. and the thing? And he's just going, he says, no, he wasn't being offensive. And he says, I also found it hilarious. And he says, this is also the guy, and he talked about a role where Robert Downey Jr. was playing a Mexican. And it was a role that Jamie Foxx cast him in. And he says, I love this guy. And he says, Robert Downey's like, first of all, he's like, okay, first of all, yes, I'll do it. And then he says, but I gotta tell you, I'm a little unsure about playing a Mexican. And Jamie Foxx says, well, you had no problem playing a black man. and he's like, but I don't mean that as a dig. And he says, the whole thing was, it was a joke. He's like, we're not really, he's like, and I had a black person who was playing a white person. He's like, we had a lot of people playing different things. Yeah. And I think that kind of balances it out. If you're going to like say, hire a white person to play a minority, hire a black person to play something else, like give everyone a shot at least. So it's kind of on some kind of equal playing field. But then he was talking about, he's like, I still love this man. He says, I was invited to his birthday party, and he's like, I did stand up, and he's like, the very first joke I made was like, thank you for stealing all these roles from us black actors. Like, he's just like, he's like, and everybody was laughing. He's like, and Robert was laughing. It's all.
And we have to understand that time. Like, granted, it was like the mid 2000s when that movie came out, I believe. It's crazy it's been around like for that long, or was it? What? Shit. I don't know. I feel like it's been like it's been a long time.
It's been a while.
Yeah. Can Tropic Thunder come out in 2020? No. We have progressed into a much more sensitive time for good and for bad, right? And I'm not in the business of trying to retroactively, discuss and like, critique every choice that was made in regards to like a bulk of what was done in the 80s and 90s can't come out now, right? Like it can't. And I'm not going to beat myself up for laughing at it then, right? Like it was just, this is how it is, right? And it's different for a little bit of everything, but like when it comes to movies, they're movies. Like they're not doing it. They're not keeping me from getting a job. They are not keeping me. I mean, well, okay, let me put it that way. They're not directly impacting me from getting work. But what it is a testament to the systems that have been in place that limited the type of work that folks that look like me could get. And that's the point, and I don't want to hear this reverse racism bullshit. Like what happens when, black people, like with white chicks, from the Wayans brothers, right?
I fucking love that movie.
Fucking love it, right? But you have to understand, they did not put on white faces to limit the opportunities of white actors to do the role. Like that's the difference, guys. Like Robert Downey Jr. didn't put on that character to limit the opportunity of a black person. Like the entire point of that character was, like you said, a commentary on blackface and how these certain method actors stupid lengths to like that was the commentary. No, a black person.
The character essentially is
white.
A white man.
Yes, he's a white man, right? And the same thing, like in White Chicks, these are black special agents that are putting on a mask, just like how James Bond would, just like how Ethan Hunt would, in order to infiltrate and find a bad guy. They're not.
I was thinking more like Big Mama's House.
I mean, look, absolutely, right? Like Martin Lawrence did not take the opportunity of a actress of a black, like what I'm saying. He did not take that Big Mama's House. That could have been an opportunity for an African American woman. How dare you, Martin Lawrence? No, stupid. Like that's a part. Like that is essentially the role. But you have some folks that some folks that are just like so out there with like wanting to, and I guess that's where the folks who are on the right will say, look at these social justice warriors. They blow everything out of proportion. I think social justice warrior is such a stupid way to try to to try to land basically. That's such a. Please pick something else, because nobody should ever be mad at somebody who is a warrior for social justice.
Yeah, I just hate it, obviously, when it's used in a negative connotation for someone who's getting way too PC. Like they've come full circle to the. I say that there's a point with certain people, and especially in this era, where we've gotten so PC we're now offensive.
Yeah. Like
we just gone around in this circle to the point. It's like when someone's saying something and they think they're sounding progressive, it's like, actually, that was offensive.
Yeah. So look at it this way, right? I'm a black actor. If there was a casting call and there was an opportunity for me to be able to embrace a role where this character, who I'm wishing to play, is homosexual, I do not believe that I don't have the right to go out for this role just because I am not homosexual.
Right.
I encourage other actors who are homosexual, who feel like they can go out for this role and get it. I do not necessarily believe that. Now it's an absolute fair desire for a producer or a director to say, for this project, I want to carve out a space for an actor of that community to play this role. I want that, and that is absolutely fine. It is not required. That's the difference, right? It's because I do not believe by me going by, I'm limiting the opportunity of because one, for a number of years, folks who weren't out had to be closeted in order to get work.
Oh yeah.
And it's crazy because they were all working together. People knew, but they just couldn't be out in public. You know what I mean? That was that limiting thing. Now it's not as pervasive, but shout out to those who want to use their projects to be able to carve out spaces for marginalized groups. But people will also have the right to say, yo, anybody can go out for this role. Now, I'm not saying we need to be like Scarlett Johansson, like if I want to play a tree, I'll play a tree. Like, no, it's going to be problematic if you are a white actor saying like, hey, I want to play this black role. I mean, the whole, I don't know if there's any truth to it, but the fact that like there was an actual debate in Hollywood if Julia Roberts can play Harriet Tubman.
Yeah, I heard about that, and right? I don't even know if that was a thing. But if it was, I'm like, who thought that was a good idea?
White people. I don't know.
Me there.
Yeah, but ultimately, if that person going out for that role is legitimately suppressing the opportunity of another group, that's where it's a problem. What the Wayans did in White Chicks was not keeping the role from white women because those characters. I would also
like to point out, if anybody thought that was racist, please keep in mind that there's like only 4 black people in that entire movie.
Yes. And it's also directed by a black person, written by a black person. And
hello.
Yes. There's not a lot of black people in that movie.
Yeah, no, it's black people making fun of white people, and it's a majoritively white cast. But let's just face it, I can watch that and be like, yeah, there wasn't a lot of inaccuracy in this role. Like, I'm serious. But in speaking about representation, I personally, there are so many films that I watch or TV shows, and I see female characters or I see LGBT characters, and I'm just like, none of y'all reflect any of my life experiences. You don't reflect the kind of woman I see myself as, or women that I find empowering. I'm like, if somebody else does, that's great. I'm still waiting for it. I mean, there have been a couple, and then like there's only been for me one Marvel female character who I've completely been like, you're what I've waited for, and then they killed her off. So thank you very fucking much.
Who's that?
But Frigga. Thor's mom is like, she's everything. She's elegant and sophisticated, and she's maternal. Yeah. But at the same time, she can fight. Like, don't underestimate this woman. But she, as much as she can fight and wield the sword, she doesn't have to. She's also very intelligent. Yeah. But where her strength is in her maternal instinct and her compassion, where it's like, no, I don't have to fight. I can use my words, which I feel like is like meant to be a strength for women. And I don't like that films depict maternal instinct as a weakness, because it's a strength.
I mean, yes, to be responsible for birthing a human being, it takes
I keep
strength.
telling people, the expression is a mother lifting a car off her child. That expression is there for a reason, because it's that protective instinct that will allow them to surpass any limitation. So please don't tell me being maternal or being feminine is a weakness, because I'm really sick of them trying to like masculinize or butch up female characters, because it's like, oh, the only way they can be tough is if they act like men. I'm like, fuck you.
And that's where it gets problematic too. I mean, speaking with the MCU, right?
Sorry, I got issues.
But think about it. But for a lot of us, that's what we've been taught, and that's the unfortunate thing, right? We thought in order for us to respect a strong woman, they've got to be Ripley, right? Like that's that, or they have to be Sarah.
Don't get me
Sarah
wrong,
Connor.
I love me some Ripley.
Yeah, they have to be Ripley. They've got to be Sarah Connor, and I think if that's what the 80s and 90s called for, that's the 80s and 90s. We now know that we need something different. It's unfortunate that you've never seen yourself really represented on film in a big way. And I have friends who said the same thing, Kolby. I don't see myself on screen. Shit, I didn't see myself on screen, to a certain extent. But it only comes from like when I get the perspective of certain filmmakers, right? We need to, that male gaze is problematic. And unfortunately, it takes up so much of what is made and produced and shot and what ultimately comes out in Hollywood, right? The only way that we can change the perception of these female characters, and especially with, like you mentioned, the LGBTQ plus, characters in the community, is changing up the lens in which the stories are told. But that is going to require those in power giving up power to create equitable spaces in order to work. There are They're making baby steps and strides to create change. And the thing is that for us, we got to be patient because it's not something that can happen overnight. That's the frustrating part.
It's a sprint, not a marathon.
That's correct.
No, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. But you're absolutely right. I mean, one, I would just say this personally. I've known of one. I had a very weird view of what homosexuality was as a kid because I only was taught, because they don't teach it in school. I was only taught based on what TV shows and movies showed me, right? But understanding that it was not people of that community that were creating those. So I'm getting that lens of whoever's choosing it. I was fetishizing lesbianism because it was expressed in a way that made it seem that, one, homosexuality was this innate hypersexual. Like, if you're gay, that means all you want to do is fuck. But that's what was taught to us, right? Think about all the jokes we make. Don't drop the soap. It perpetuates that you can have an attraction to a man and you are a sexual predator. And that's where that hate comes from. And it was taught to us on TV and movies, and we accepted it. We were conditioned, and that's unfortunate. But it was from that male gaze. And they were the ones that created the rules. And it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a generation or two to change that. And I will say, shout out to Gen Z. These little fuckheads, they're weird in some instances, but they are much more sensitive to calling out this bullshit. And they're the ones that are having these discussions, some good, some not, saying this is not okay.
Here's one thing that I don't appreciate when people kind of shit on older films or older TV shows. Oh my god, can you believe this thing wasn't progressive 20 years ago? How fucking offensive. I'm did you catch the part where you said 20 years ago? You gotta take a step back, look at what was going on at that time, then analyze it, and then you might go, hang on, this was actually pretty progressive for that time period. People hate on my beloved Charmed, saying it was offensive. They never had any black people, gay people, and it was hypersexualized. I'm let me get my asthma pump. First of all, one of the actors of the reboot said they never had a main black actor. I'm Daryl Morris, 7 fucking seasons, please piss off. He was also in the opening credits. Don't start me. They didn't just go, oh, he's every now and then. No, he had opening credits for 7 seasons. He had a fixture. They actually gave him a life. They gave him a wife. They gave him children, and they featured them, and they're actually contributing. And then and here are all these other black actors who appeared where even if they had a small role and they weren't going to be around, it was a role that impacted the entire story. They had an actual purpose where episodes would go by and you're I still remember that person. They weren't throwaways. Yeah. They did have 4 gay people. I'm not saying that it's they were. I'm again, I'm looking at the time period of, at least there were moments where they did try to include it. Now, ultimately, this was a show about empowering women, and I think that was their focus, and they did that pretty freaking well. We expect more these days? Yes, we do. But to say that didn't do its job at the time, because I know so many people like myself who were empowered by that show, and it's you gotta start somewhere. Don't hate on shows and films that at least tried to do something. Yeah. In this case, it was, we want to empower women. So they fucking did it. Yeah. You can't get mad at anything that tried. I mean, I can even go back to, I still can't believe people getting controversial over the fucking Golden Girls over fucking mud masks.
Yeah, somebody talked to me, asked me about that yesterday. One, I don't remember the episode, but I feel as it was described to me, they were at a wedding, and it was a quick joke saying, hey, we're not black, we're just wearing these mud masks. Number one, that was not blackface.
I don't remember the exact scene now. I think it was when they were at home and they were doing a facial and they walked out and they saw someone and it was Rose who just says whatever pops in her head. She goes, we're not actually black. And it's nobody would have thought that. For starters, it's a brown mud mask. Yes. But people going, that's blackface. No, it's not. It's a face mask, and if face masks are offensive now, I need to go throw out every single charcoal face mask I own. God damn it!
If you look at the packaging of the charcoal face mask, it looks like blackface. Usually a white woman with the complete black, face thing on and her red lips, like. But it's not blackface. Like, stop. Like, people, stop reaching. Yeah. We don't have to, like, we understand, the world can be really shitty sometimes, okay? We don't need you searching for, like, more shitty evidence. We got all the evidence we need.
That's one of the things. And first I want to say, the Golden Girls actually, for its time period, was doing a lot of progressive things.
Oh, my gosh.
It addressed gay marriage. Mm-hmm. It addressed HIV in a time where people were not talking about any of these
Racial
things.
Profiling.
It did that too.
That scene with Don Cheadle, somebody was showing me yesterday. I'm like, damn, like, we kind of forget there were, like, a lot of these shows, like, they had a heart, like, they were able to tackle. Now, granted, I'm not gonna be mad because, like, the focus of their show wasn't on, like, trying to break, like, that wasn't the focus of the show.
They addressed immigration.
Yeah.
They did all those things, and even not just, like, doing it in general, but you're having an age group of women who are, like, not really the people want to pay attention to, addressing these things and talking about these things, and I think that was freaking amazing. Yeah. Guaranteed there is some moments I can look at and I'm like, oh, damn it, I wish you hadn't said that. Yeah. But that's me now. I mean, I still have to, like, give them major props for doing what they did at that time when other people would be like, I don't think you should do it.
Are you a proponent for, because I've noticed this, and this is one of those things, like, what you were saying, like, well, we didn't ask for that, right? What we're getting a lot now is a lot of, like, retro acting, like, removal of things, right? Like, removing Gone with the Wind, removing, or, like, saying, like, we need to add, like, this conversation before somebody plays the movie, right? I think I heard that Netflix is removing a certain episode of Community, where I think Chevy Chase's character does blackface.
Okay.
I'm a little bit indifferent on, like, removing pieces of stuff that, like, had some problem. Like, was it just what it was, right?
I almost feel like it's, how do I phrase this? I feel like if you get rid of it, you're hiding it. Like, you're trying to be like, we never did that. We don't do those things.
Correct.
I feel like you should keep it. Own it. Say, yep, this is what happened. This is what people did 20, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. Just keep it as it is and use it as a stepping stone of be like, okay, here's an example of what not to do. But don't go and get rid of it and pretend it's not there. Like Little Britain as well. Yes, there were times they did characters who were black characters, but it is blackface. But here's the one difference. You said yourself, is it taking away from the role of a black actor? In Little Britain, no, it's not, because it's always just these two. They play every single character. There was never going to be them hiring a woman or a gay person or a black person for these roles. It was always going to be those two.
Tracy Ullman. It's a one-woman show. She's not going to, and she's playing all the characters. I do not believe she's ever played a black. I think she may have. I used to watch that. It was like, she would come on every now and then on HBO growing up as a kid, right? And I'm not going to get mad. I'm like, well, she was doing like this, Hispanic lady character. Why didn't she, carve up that opportunity like to have an Hispanic actress? That's not the point. It's the Tracy Ullman show. Come on, guys. Oh, Lord. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but I just feel like, don't hide it and try and be like, we didn't do it. Just keep it there, own it, just acknowledge it. I don't agree in this shit, it's like, oh, so-and-so did something 10 years ago. I'm like, okay, that's unfortunate that they did that. But have they done anything in the 10 years since to indicate that they are a person who is racist, sexist, offends, any of those things? Have they demonstrated that they have kind of grown as a human being? If we judge people solely on what they did in the past and mean that means no person is open for growth. It's like, why bother rehabilitating any criminal because you're just saying that there's no such thing as rehabilitation. You're saying that people are not capable of moving forward. I know people who have been in fucking gangs and they are so not that person anymore. There are people who you can see who say, I was a fucking member of the KKK, and you know what? I've gotten rid of my tattoos and I know that life I had was bad. That life was fucking wrong.
My college professor was a high wizard in the Ku Klux Klan. And And I was like, when we found that out, I was like, I don't know. I've never had to encounter that. And he was very upfront and honest about where he came from, why he thought that way, and ultimately why he had to completely turn his life around. And like, it was great to know, like, yo, people are not solely defined by what they've done, especially in their past, that people can change.
If you don't give a person the opportunity to change, like if you just start yelling at someone, because a lot of people are very defensive.
Yeah.
So if you immediately start bombard them with negativity and you attack and you attack and you attack, like the person who shall remain nameless, who we said some very stupid things. I'm not going to say their name, but I'm going to say what they said. Where they said that Black Lives Matter is the same as the KKK, which is one of the dumbest fucking statements I've ever heard in my 29 years on this earth. But the way you addressed it was not to scream and yell and call this person a racist. Mm-hmm. It was racist. Let's not pretend it wasn't. Yeah. But you did not attack. And there were a lot of people, sadly, there were some people who went for the attack. I can't blame them because any person who is not those things, you immediately want to get rid of it. But you have to realize that you can't necessarily fight fire with fire.
Yep.
And so you and other people took the opportunity to say, I'm willing to have a dialogue with you and explain to you why this way of thinking is harmful. I am willing to have an open, calm discussion. That was offered to him on a silver platter. Mm-hmm. He showed himself by rejecting it.
Yeah.
It's the equivalent. It's cutting off your nose to spite your face. He was so determined to see himself and his opinion as right, despite the fact that overwhelming numbers of people were saying you are wrong and this is wrong. He didn't want to hear it. He was happy to maintain that. And I genuinely saw people saying, please DM me. I will happily talk to you about this. Yeah. He didn't want to hear it.
No. And I even reached out to him again a week or so later. I was like, yo.
You're brave.
Yeah. Like I said, I am probably too tolerant. Mainly because of I didn't like a lot of the comments that were coming his way. I try to operate from a space of, and I repeat this, compassion, empathy, respect. I could have been like, I mean, granted, I said, fuck this guy, but like not fuck this guy for like what he said. And also his resistance to actually like creating, like to having a dialogue, this is a person that does not want to have his mind changed. He was completely made up. To equate a movement to a registered group of people, like the Black Lives Matter is a movement. It's essentially Black Lives Matter is also an organization, like, like refunding, stuff like that. The Ku Klux Klan, like, has been chronicled American domestic terrorists who have killed people. No one has killed anybody, to the best of my knowledge, in the name of Black Lives Matter.
I would also like to point out that Black Lives Matter is not, it's not an exclusive movement.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like,
it's like if you support the cause, join the cause. Whereas KKK is like, we want white cis people only. And it's like, I'm white. It's like, oh yeah, but you're a Jew. You don't really count, so you gotta fuck off.
Yeah.
Peaceful protesting fucking has never resulted in people getting lynched.
Yes.
My God, I do not see Black Lives Matter protesters out there setting fucking crucifixes on fire in people's front yards.
Yes.
I'll see this shit.
They don't. It was really foolish. And like, I reached out to him again and said, listen, bro, I have no problem giving up my platform, because if you truly believe that, right, I would love to create a dialogue, because maybe there's people that like just, in tweets, we don't always say exactly what we mean, like, or say stuff. And he ultimately took it down. I mean, if you felt that emboldened by it, you wouldn't have taken down that tweet,
Oh, he didn't take it down.
Oh no, he deleted the tweet.
No, he didn't delete it on his own. That's because the tweet kept getting reported.
Gotcha.
Twitter took it down, not him. And he even said that, and he because I went to his channel after I blocked it, so I went and had a look, and he did actually post a tweet where he said, "I can't believe Twitter did XYZ over something that was just my opinion." It's like, you really don't see how what you said was wrong.
It's really inflammatory too. Like
it was unfortunate that I clicked on his YouTube link, and he's people going through his videos, and just it wasn't.
The comments are.
It wasn't savory.
Kind. Yeah, no.
They were not. Like, they were immediately some people going, "Don't support him. He's a racist." I'm like.
And it sucks because it's those nasty comments that the people who are on the other side, they're like, "Look, you guys are just as bad."
Words being thrown out there. Oh yeah.
And that's the unfortunate thing. Like, those comments should not then invalidate like the actual the cause. But that's what they want to do. They want to do everything to be able to like shift the blame. No, it's on you. You're just as bad. Whatever you're calling me out for, look, you're doing it. Like that's.
There's have you ever seen the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God, you're so shook. Okay, I'm gonna tell you now. There ain't many black people, and if they are, they're all whores. But it's Texas in the 80s or 70s. Like, what do you expect?
Absolutely.
Anyway, at least they work, and then they're good. Okay, there was also a maid, but she's a badass and she's great. But there's a song in it because people are protesting that the whorehouse is house of ill repute, must be gotten rid of. And people are going to, I think, the governor of Texas to say, please don't let them do this. And he sings this song called The Sidestep, where where it's all about him as a political figure sidestepping questions. So that's why it's called The Sidestep. And all the lyrics are about him just doing everything he can to kind of not do his job. He's just going to do whatever to appease people to keep his seat, but he's not really doing anything. I feel like that entire song, or at least the essence of the song, describes everybody right now. And it's great when people want to, show that, I'm a good person and I'm so good, I hate all things racist, and so I'm going to dive through someone's Twitter history until I find something from 10 years ago that indicates they said something bad. It's like, but do they still say those things now? And sometimes, I've forgotten his name. Guardians of the Galaxy director.
Oh goodness gracious. Yeah,
Yeah, okay. We've all gone blank. That's bad. Him.
Yes, him.
Him, and people are like, okay, he should be fired because he said something this many years ago. It's like, yeah, but several years ago he also addressed it, apologized, and he hasn't done it since. It's like, that's the time where you need to let that shit go.
Yeah.
It's it's even the same thing with people who say, I've had this personal problem with with so and so, nothing to do with social media. It's like, we hated each other, but at some point they came and apologized, and you know what? I've let it go. We good. It's in the past. You're just gonna learn to focus on what's going on now.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, the movies now. Let's not address something that happened years ago. Keep it. Let's know about it. You know what? Because we learn from those things. Yeah. I find it one of the things, if we're talking Gone with the Wind, I find one of the fascinating things about Gone with the Wind is the fact that it's such a difference between then and now, for the fact that it got a hefty fine for saying damn. And now we have got all these movies of people saying fuck, shit, cunt, and all this other goddamn stuff, and they ain't getting fines no more. That's how much things have changed. And yes, racial stuff. That movie made me hate my own name. Ashley. Oh, Ashley. Fuck off with your saying Ashley. God damn it. But it's good to be educated. It's why we have, film study classes and things like that. You look at them, you learn, you grow. So, on that, I want to ask you, what films have you seen that reflect your life experiences personally, if you have seen any at all? Is there anywhere you've been like, yep, I can relate to this, or I have experienced this, or anything like that?
I mean, not really. That's like reflected my life experiences, and that's only because I've lived I guess an unconventional life as a
Mm-hmm.
33-year-old black man, right? Like I'm an 80s baby, but a 90s kid. You know, born in Miami, raised in New York, and like what I always like to say, became a man when I graduated high school and moved to LA, right? So like
Right.
I'm a constant mover, and I've been in like so many different places. Like I mean, there's movies that I feel like that like kind of scratch at the surface of what I've been
Mm-hmm.
through. I think there's more TV shows that have done that for me.
Yeah.
Where I've
Mm.
seen myself. One of my favorite shows growing up as a kid is The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air
Oh, yeah.
with Will Smith. And
Mm-hmm.
granted, I didn't move to, from Philadelphia to California and live in a big mansion, but at the same time, my mother was on some hard times, and
Yep.
unfortunately, as a single mom, um, she could not afford to take care of me the best way that she could. So she asked her brother to take me in. So I had to move from a really rough part of Miami to a slightly better part of Miami, and I'm living in my uncle's house, kind of like how Will Smith living with his uncle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to acclimate to my two cousins, in the same way that Will Smith was, going to a much wider elementary school, than what I would have been provided. Because ultimately, it was like a school decision too. Because here in the States, you're zoned based on where you live. That's the school you go to. Well, if you live in an impoverished neighborhood, there's
Right.
a very strong likelihood your school will also be limited in its resources. My mom didn't want that, so she wanted me to like live with my uncle, so that way that address would give me access to a much better education. I mean, we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about this is first, second, third, fourth grade that like she had to make this decision.
Yeah.
That was more emblematic of what I was experiencing at that time, right? But I haven't really found that in movies, and I think that's because just of how the movie industry is. It's hard for people to have that lens and perspective, get
Mm-hmm.
access to create those movies. I mean,
Yeah.
it's think about the biggest celebration that we have in the movie theater industry is the Oscars. And it's very indicative of how little access there is for
Mm-hmm.
black storytellers with that lens to put themselves on screen.
Hey, as long as you are prepared to depict yourself as a slave, you win in the Oscar.
I mean,
Is
it's really unfortunate. So yeah, I have not got a chance, and it's the same thing, for my Latino and Latinx, brothers and sisters
yeah.
who they don't get a chance to see themselves really portrayed as they should
Yeah.
be on the big screen. It's easier done on TV only because those groups like in those audience are much more likely to watch themselves on TV because
Yeah.
everybody has access to a TV. A lot of folks don't have access to movies.
That's true. I I think there are certain shows that are able to tell certain shows and movies that are able to tell universal stories that not necessarily come down to race or gender or anything like that. I think Fresh Prince of Bel Air did a great job at not only telling the stories of black people and things that they will face, because they really went through the whole
Yeah.
range of things, whether it be telling the story of black people, the hardships that they come. But then the
Hmm.
flip side, where there was the episode where Will and Carlton are rushing a fraternity house,
Yeah.
and the brothers don't want him in because Carlton is too white for them.
Hmm.
And he's like, because you're rich, you know what we represent. And he's just like, what?
Yeah.
Like, my dad fights to give us a good life, and he succeeds, and I'm punished for it? Like, what the fuck? And then, of course, everybody called him out, and they're like, nah, dude, you stupid. But, I mean, I have certainly watched many episodes where Fresh Prince has hit home for me, and I know a lot of people, especially Will Smith confronting his dad and having
Yeah.
that meltdown with Uncle Phil saying, why doesn't he want me? I can get emotional just thinking about it, because those words are the words that I've said my entire life whenever I've thought about my dad, where it's just like, I'm glad he's not in my life, and because I know he was a bad person and he's left me with a lot of trauma that I can't get past. But that emptiness and that abandonment, it doesn't leave you, it doesn't go away. So whenever I would see Will Smith saying those words, why doesn't he want me? I know I've said those words myself, and I still think it to this day as a 29-year-old woman. I'm like, why didn't he want me? I was his first child. Why was I not good enough? And it's those kind of stories where it's just like, yeah, that can speak to so many people, but yeah, that one, oh my god, anytime I watch that, I cry for half
it's
an
one
hour.
of the, it's one of those moments of like you can't forget. I know I will never forget it, and because, and we can, that's something that we share, similarly, is that I didn't have a strong connection, to my birth father, and I'm like, why didn't you like fight harder for me? Like, granted, everything that, like, whatever the differences you may have had, with my mom, like, why could you not play a more active role in my life? And it's hard not to, as a kid, to think that you did something wrong, because that's all that you can control. Like, maybe I can change it, but it's not our fault, right? It's incredibly powerful for that moment to hit in such a universal way. It hit you, this beautiful Australian young girl, like on the other side of the world, in the same way that it hit me, living in Miami, Florida at the time. And like, that's the power of cinema, whether it's on the big screen or it's on the small screen. I pray that there are more moments like that audiences can take for themselves on the big screen, because I believe in the power of like the theater going experience. And it's unfortunate that experience is in danger right now because of this global pandemic. And I really do pray that we find a way to keep it, because I think it's so vital. But I'm glad that we have TV as an alternative, because those stories have, that's where I have felt at more home in regards to seeing myself represented. It's been in the small screen, but I really wanted to transcend to the big screen, because I believe in that power.
I completely agree with you. It's crazy that people try to divide people over really stupid movie opinions, when you can really just step back and realize how much movies can bring people together. Like you just said, us both sharing a similar experience watching Fresh Prince, and it's like our backgrounds are not remotely alike, but this one thing. And I feel like that's everything nowadays. Everybody's kind of jumping around going, well, I have this type of oppression, I've got this type of oppression, and you don't understand me. It's like we all have something in common. And maybe if we tried to focus on the things that we share, whether they be good or bad, especially in adversity. And because I've never agreed when as an example, I had a friend, she was technically, her background was Dominican, and there weren't many, I guess in our circle of friends, there weren't that many people of color, but there were a lot of ethnicities, I will say that. We were a smorgasbord of people. I used to say we were like the UN, because there was one from every person. I'm like, he's Jamaican, she's Dominican, she's Malaysian, she's Swedish. I'm like, we got everything, we're good. But I one day saw her, it was around the time Obama was, he won and became president, and there was the talk of, legalizing gay marriage. And she took to her Facebook one day and she was talking about, it's wrong, it's disgusting, gays should not be allowed to marry. And I went, ooh, this is a side to you I did not know. Yeah. I'm kind of shocked right now. And then I watched a friend of mine, friend of me, I'll say, respond to her. And he is a person of color too. He was half Aboriginal. His dad's background was Polish and his mum was Aborigine. And he immediately confronted her and he said, I can't believe you just said that. And she's like, it's just how I feel. And he said, 30 years ago, you wouldn't have been allowed to get married to your current boyfriend.
Yeah.
He's like, because you're a woman of color and he is not. And she says, it's completely different. He goes, no, it's not. It's the same thing. It's people being judged for being different. And she's like, you're twisting it. And he goes, no, I'm not. It's the same fucking thing. How can you not see that you, a minority who has been judged for being a minority, are fucking judging minorities right now? Do you not see that?
Some people are just thick.
Oh, they so are, which is funny because she was the size of a twig. But that's why I feel like I can't shit on another person's rights, because I know that I have certain things, whether it be, especially as a woman, where I still have to listen to people being like, no, you don't have the right to do what you want with your own body. It's like, what? No, I don't. Oh, that's great. I've dealt with sexual harassment and assault and have to deal with the fact that it was at the hands of my boss, and his boss defended him and put the blame on me. I know those things. So I understand how it is to be treated a certain way. I can't do that to another person when I know how horrible it feels. So when I see another person do it, I'm like, why? And I feel like it comes down to like the schoolyard bully. Mm-hmm. You know, they've got a really shit life at home, so they pick on the weak kids at school because it makes them feel better. Yeah. I'm like, is that why you do this?
Don't know how to process their anger, and unfortunately, it manifests into like really dangerous, actions. And the differences that we have, like, one, we shouldn't pretend that there's not. Like, people who say, "Oh, I don't see color." No, I want you to see color, because I want you to see what makes us different.
I can see a rainbow.
Yeah, the differences should not divide us, like you say. The difference should unite us. Like, we should be able to find some commonality amongst our differences. I mean, the fact that that scene in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, even though we have completely different perspectives and backgrounds, at that moment, that's what united us. I mean, shit, maybe that's why you thought of calling this podcast Unity Through Cinema Podcast. Like, finding these interesting moments throughout.
He understood the reference.
I mean, but like, there's a lot of people that may not. So it's good that we have these conversations so that people can literally understand, like, just because we are different doesn't mean bad. Different doesn't mean divide. Different just means different. Let's celebrate our differences and see what commonality that we have and things that we thought made us different that were not so different.
Because I think there's one thing that people, I feel like maybe they don't. Sometimes it pops up in film or television, but I feel like it's something that could afford to be addressed a little bit more, where they don't discuss enough about inner community prejudice. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying that it's like, oh, well, now you're just going to paint a bad image and say, like, all minorities are like this. No. What I'm trying to say is it's important to tell these stories, because people in these minorities do experience prejudice within that minority.
Oh, yeah. I have privilege because I am a black man. I understand that I have a privilege that my black sisters do not get. Sisters in general, like I've told you before, just, off wax, like, it's unfortunate just, on social media, what women, especially on Twitter, especially on YouTube, have to go through. Because ain't nobody gonna come step to me the way they would step to you. And that's fucked up. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really, really wrong.
Yeah, here's a common thing. I'm not saying that men have never received hate on the internet. It's the internet. Yeah. It don't happen.
Yeah.
But the type of hate that you get is dependent on who you are. Mm-hmm. If you're a black person, naturally they're going to come for your skin color. Yeah. If you're Latinx, they come for that. Suddenly they're going to be like, go back to your own country. Oh my God, cliche. If they can tell or they know that you're gay, here come the gay slurs. And if you're a woman, here come the rape threats. And I know that they do this with guys, except it's a twist with the guys. It's not, I'm going to rape you. It's, I'm going to rape your mother or your sister or your this. It's like, wow, we are really just tools. That's all we are to you people, isn't it? I mean, the number of times, people say, you hated that movie? Well, I'm going to fucking rape you. And I personally, maybe once upon a time I would get hurt by this, but I'm at a point in my life where depending on the insult, I will first, like, anxiety will kick in and then I kind of control it.
Yeah.
But then there are times where I'm like, if I get a rape threat and someone's like, doesn't that scare you or anything? And I'm like, no, because I'm pretty sure their dick can't reach me. So I'm like, where are you? Oh, you're in the US? So you're telling me you're going to get on a plane, track me down, and then yeah, fuck off, as if you are. It's a load of shit, and it's just a stupid threat, but it says so much about that person than it will ever say about me. But yeah, there is that. I had someone the other day, and I said there were so many communities I haven't felt welcome by, whether it be female film critics, and I don't feel very accepted by the LGBT plus community. And someone said, oh, the LGBT, they weren't LGBT, they were straight, and they said, oh, the LGBT community accepts everyone. I'm like, no, they don't.
No.
And he's like, really? And I'm like, no. And it kind of showed me.
I mean, anywhere that there is intolerance, there's going to be just intolerance everywhere. I would never, my black community, we are not a monolith. So we don't all think alike. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there is colorism amongst us.
And I've seen black people right now saying all lives matter, and I'm not sure how to respond to that. Yeah. And so I just kind of leave it alone. I'm like,
no, you should. I mean, ultimately,
this ain't my battle. With that person.
Anybody can have their thoughts and opinions, and like ultimately all we can do is just try to find some commonality and like in reasoning through dialogue. But like, and just because there's intolerance amongst a marginalized group doesn't then mean it's okay to then continue to marginalize that group. It's like, well, you can't be mad at white people if you like the whole like oh, you want to have like stop police brutality, but like what about black on black crime? Shut up. Because all you want to do is shift the narrative. So like if we can put this on black crime, right? Address that, and then we can address the brutalizing and killing of black people by by cops. No. Number one, black on black crime doesn't exist. It's not real. Most people perpetrate crimes against people in their groups. That's just how people work.
Yeah, you don't hear people saying white on white crime.
No.
They just call it crime.
Yes. It's
like, what do you call French bread? Bread.
Yes.
That's what you call it. What do you call black on black crime? I call it a crime.
Yes.
It's when they profile serial killers or just killers in general, it's like, well, what do they say? Well, people typically, if it's a sexually motivated crime, they will kill the people that are the object of their sexual attraction. Yes. So if it's a straight man, he's going to kill women. If it's a gay man, he's likely to kill men. It's not to say that oh, that's an offense. It's like, no, it's just that's kind of what you do. And especially, I'm gonna say in these, I may not be American, but I fucking educate myself. In a lot of these places where they're talking about black on black crime, there aren't really any white people around. So who the fuck else are they going to attack?
I mean, yeah. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, if I'm only in this community, I'm not about to go out my way to go like, let me inflict some black on white crime. Like, just to satisfy, like, see, let me beat your statistic. No, like, that's how groups work. We hurt the people that are closest to us. Think about how often friends and family members hurt our feelings. Like it's those that are closest to us that hurt us. It works the same way with crime, folks.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm that close to my family when they hurt my feelings, but that's a different story. But there's so many layers to those things, and I feel like even then, people who are saying that, they're not well educated.
No, they're not.
Because you have to look at the bigger picture, aside from the fact that these are predominantly black neighborhoods. You also have to look at the fact that around most of America, predominantly black neighborhoods are underprivileged neighborhoods, and the cops don't really care if black people go around killing other black people. So it's like, why do you only care when black people start fighting for rights? Like, now you care that they're killing each other? It's like you didn't care before. It's like you're just using that as like it's a it's a court case, and I've got evidence. Like, no, actually you don't. That kind of sucked. That was really bad evidence.
Yeah.
Like all these people talking about COVID, and they're like, masks don't work and they prevent you from breathing. It's like, why isn't every nurse and doctor for the last 100 years dead? What?
Yeah.
There's a lot of logic missing from the world, and I'm hoping someone said the other day, they're like, please, filmmakers, don't make a film about 2020. We don't want to see it. And I got to
I
agree.
think the director of The Big Short actually just said that he's making a pandemic movie about this. I'm like, we don't need it,
We
bro. Like
don't.
it's this is well chronicled. I don't need I will honestly I probably will not watch it only because like I don't need to be reminded of 2020. This year did not
Yeah,
go off the way that
it didn't.
that we definitely had plans
No.
for. Um,
No, none of us are happy, and we're all dealing with things. We're all dealing it with in our own ways, and then when we have to add animosity to it, it doesn't help. It's unfortunate that a lot of us who use podcasting or YouTubing or all this stuff, I think for a lot of us, we use it as an escape, just a really nice way to let loose in this, and it's unfortunate that it's kind of not an escape these days because we feel, well, depending on who you are, but good people kind of feel compelled. It's like, well, I feel like I have to address this. I feel like I have to say something. I can't just pretend it's not happening. And then you've got other people who either don't care, so they don't want to talk about it, or people who do care, but they don't want to talk about it because they want to keep that space as their comfort space. And I totally get that. But, you know, we already deal with so much shit on these platforms. I mean, I've dealt with plenty of discrimination and hate. Have you copped a lot of discrimination or hate in your podcasting career? Maybe not necessarily being black, but just in general. Do you find yourself at the brunt of a lot of it?
um,
I have
very,
not seen
very,
that because
very
I mean,
small.
yeah, because I've mostly only seen people like adore you. So.
No, I mean, I've had folks like leave some like nasty comments. Like actually, folks went out their way to go to my website and then like use like a fake email account to like to say some like really like disgusting things.
Love they're so desperate to do
But like
it.
that's the off. I've been pretty blessed that the way that I go about, like I am really authentic. I don't preach myself as being perfect or being like, the paragon of like this the way how you do things because I am so far from perfect.
Yeah.
I'm just human and I'm just Kolby and that's all I can control, right? And either
Mm-hmm.
you vibe with me or you don't. And I'm gonna always keep it real. I am not gonna sugarcoat anything, but at the same time, I try my best to always operate from a place of respect, compassion, and empathy. And I think that's why folks rock with me.
Well, I can't deny that. I really can't. I mean, the this for those who don't know, Kolby is a genuinely nice, good, awesome person who, when I was going through a rough patch, barely even knew me and called me over Facebook just to see how I was and totally made me feel better. And I was in a very, very bad place. And he completely turned my mood around by just letting me shoot the breeze. And I thank you so much for doing that. There really was a bad night. And I don't actually have a lot of... a lot. I don't have anybody in my life who actually does that. I don't know anybody who would just like call me on a dime and be like, hey, are you okay? Like, do you just want to talk? Do you want to, I don't know, do you want to bitch about something? I don't know, whatever. I often get the comments of people like, hey, my DMs are open. If you want to talk, come to me. I'm like, why I always gotta go to you people? Why can't somebody be like, have enough frame of mind to like send me a message, go, hey, are you okay? And when I get those, I'm like, oh my god, somebody did it. Holy shit. Because it really offends me. I'm not saying that these people are intending to be offensive,
Yeah.
but it offends me when people say, hey, DM me if you ever want to talk and, get something off your chest. I'm like, no, how about you be a decent enough person to reach out and go, hey, you okay? It ain't that
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, because
Really,
honestly, for folks that are going through something, it's hard to reach out. Like,
yeah.
it really, really is. And you know, I'm perceptive enough, and also I enjoy conversation that when I see someone who like I admire and like, that I engage with, and I can kind of get this sense that it's tough right now. I feel like one, I felt a personal conviction just to reach out, and I obviously like we didn't have too much of like engagement and stuff like that, like and plus also like I understand like how different it is to try to navigate your world with a Western world that's 14 hours apart. Like that is really, really challenging. You know, imagine like if you were in a completely different time zone, like how, like, you know, like how much, like just how different that would just affect your entire life. And you, like you yourself have kind of engineered your life to be more on like a Western time. Like that takes a lot, you know? And the fact that I didn't know you greatly, except, you know, just like, you know, in passing and stuff like that, we're always cordial, but like I just felt emboldened to like, let me just reach out and call you. And like honestly, since then, and it's crazy, I don't even know how long ago that was, but, like, you know, there's not a week where we don't talk and just have like great conversation. It's not necessarily always about film. Like I consider you, like you are a genuine friend to me. I've confided in you in things and you've been like a great comfort to be able to have. And, you know, finally being able to collab with you, like that's what like the beauty of like this community when it's being done right is like, it's like that's what we can be able to have.
I could not agree more. And I think it was only, I think that was like, it's only been a month.
Yeah.
I think that's it. But
no,
it
feels like, I feel like I've known you for a while now.
It feels like, I'm totally like, I was like, I said, I'm doing a podcast later. And she goes, oh yeah, who are you talking to? And I said, Kolby. And she's like, I don't know this name. And I'm like, it's a new thing. I'm just like, but then I'm just like, it doesn't feel like a new thing. It feels like an old thing. I feel like, yeah, this, like, if we were, like, living together, it would have been like, yeah, pre-COVID, we were down the bar, getting drinks, like, that was life. And it's just like, yeah, no, now this is COVID life, and everything's over computer. But it's like, no, we've, nothing. We've never had any interaction except for the, you know, the occasional stuff on Twitter. But I feel very privileged to know Kolby, and I'm very grateful to now call him my friend. And I'm very happy that I was able to have him on the very first episode of Unity Through Cinema. I did not really ask majority of the questions that I wanted to ask Kolby, but I feel like unintentionally or intentionally, just through conversation, we pretty much touched on every question that I had. So I'm like, I'm okay with that. There were a couple I wanted, but I'm like, you know what? There's always a future podcast episode.
Hell yeah.
So
Part 2? I'm ready for it.
So, Kolby, this is the part where I honestly hate this part when I guest appearance on a podcast and people ask me to do it. I freeze up. I'm like, oh shit. So let's see how you go. Plug yourself, my friend.
Yo, once again, Ashley, thanks so much for allowing me to rock the mic with you. If you're not following me already, you can follow your boy. I'm available on all the socials at Kolby Told Me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm on Facebook at Kolby Mac. When I'm in the mood to write, you can check out my words on my website, kolbytoldme.com. You can listen to my podcast, the Kolby Told Me podcast, available on all major platforms. So when they ask you where you heard it from, you tell them Kolby Told Me.
You will find links to all of his stuff down below, and I thoroughly encourage you to click on every single one, follow, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. You won't be disappointed. I'm not, and I really hope that everybody who got to listen or watch, whatever device you are on, whatever platform you are using, that you enjoyed this first episode and that you will check into future episodes where we will probably have Kolby back again and we will have lots of different unique guests. But that is it, and so I will be signing off and say thank you again, and please everybody just be goddamn good to each other and watch a lot of movies.